tonight, huh?
Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Hey, I'm here with the Bruces. 2 Bruces, no waiting. I love that.
In stereo.
Yeah, Bruce. Stereo Bruces. Hi, my name's Lionel. This is my brother Bruce, and this is my other brother Bruce.
That's right.
I love that. I just love that. I am so easily entertained. Shiny things and Bruces just entertain me endlessly. Bruce Kelly, your middle name is Scott.
That's correct.
And Bruce Wilson, your middle name is Thaddeus.
No.
But wouldn't it be great if it was Bruce Thaddeus Wilson?
Yeah, but my parents opted for Alan instead. So.
With an A or with an E?
A. Two A's and 2 L's.
See, I always think the Alan with an E is a little bit more like lawyerish or something. Although you're a big shot water geologist, so engineer / water geologist with pumps and stuff and shafts and vertical turbine pumps. Hey, today we're talking to Blair. We're going to do the second part of the 42-part trilogy with Blair Kooistra.
All right.
Kooistra. I don't think I'm saying that right. I don't think I'm doing justice to his last name. I feel like I'm not doing justice. When we get him in here, we'll have to ask him if I'm doing it properly. I feel like that's a thing of mine. I think it's important to pronounce a person's name properly, which is...
Yeah, it goes a long way, usually.
Which is pretty...
It's pronounced Blair. That's correct.
Yeah. It's pretty sad when I feel so strongly about that, and I can barely pronounce Smith. That's why I got...
You got Steve down okay.
I got Steve down good. Yeah, Steve is not a problem. And Blair, I got that down. We'll have to ask Blair what his middle name is. Maybe his middle name. Yeah. Maybe his middle name is Thaddeus. You don't know. You just never know.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
I know. He was like unbelievable. This guy is like truly this guy. He seems extremely humble to me too. I want to ask him about that. All right, somebody go get him out of the green room, please. And by coincidence, I'm drinking green Gatorade while we do this.
Green Gatorade, yeah.
Yeah, mint green. So,
what does it taste? Does it taste like mint green, or does it taste like antifreeze?
Yeah, I don't know. It tastes okay.
Yeah.
Gatorade was invented by a professor at the Florida State University for the Gators.
Yeah.
And then he came up with the name Gatorade. All right, somebody want to go get him out of the green room? Anybody?
Go ahead, Bruce, too.
No, last time I went, I hit my head.
Well, you got to watch that. I keep telling you. But
you know what? Just yell at him.
These new guys.
Just yell for him.
Hey, Blair! There we go.
Hey, you guys really need to mop the floor in there.
Yeah, well.
And the upholstery's bad enough.
Yeah.
What's that? What'd you say, Blair?
The upholstery's bad enough, but that floor is just disgusting.
The whole thing is really we need a woman's touch. You know, that's what we need is we need a woman's touch. We need to get Debbie Adams down there and maybe help us out down to Busted Knuckle, Kentucky, if we can ever find the offices. There's a Busted Knuckle mobile service. Is my microphone off? Hello? Can anybody hear me?
Hello? No, you're rambling on inherently as usual.
So, Blair, am I pronouncing your last name correctly? Is it Kooistra?
Yes, you got that right.
What's the origin of that name?
It's Frieslandic Dutch.
Frieslandic Dutch.
Northern Netherlands.
Northern Netherlands. And what's Friesland? How do we?
That's like the northern part of Holland.
Okay, and that's not okay. I have a comment, but it seems to me like it would be not rude, but perhaps not funny. So maybe I'll just stop right there.
If you can't have one, you can't have the other.
Exactly. And I don't suppose there's any chance that your middle name is Thaddeus.
Not much of a chance.
Okay. Bob? Is it Bob?
No, the middle initial is E.
Oh, for Everett.
No, it's Elliot.
Elliot. Oh, that is a cool
okay.
name.
That's
Blair.
See, this one is spelled wrong too. I have lots of friends who have children named Elliot. In fact, my son's named Elliot. But I have a 1 L and 1 T. So then again, it's my whole name is just miserable. It's just the first name's bad, the middle name is can't spell it right, and the third name it's unpronounceable. So
Blair's not bad.
Here's a connection to something else: is that Tony Ryan has a cat named Elliot.
There you go.
1 L or 2 L?
I'm not sure. We'll have to check it out.
Does the cat mind one or the other?
I don't think the cat cares as long as there's food in his dish.
Go ahead, Blair.
Here's the strange thing about the name Blair is I was just kind of curious about women versus men named with the name of Blair. And prior to the mid-'80s, Blair was like an 80% male name.
Yes.
But remember that, was it the not Different Strokes, whatever that show was where the female character was named Blair. Remember that show?
Yes.
Sitcom?
Yeah.
Not Different Strokes.
No,
not Family Ties.
the one at the school.
It was a school.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, her name was Blair, and immediately, as soon as that show came on the air, it switched almost in 1 year. The percentage of naming the sexes named Blair switched from 80% male to 80% female, just like right about 1985.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I would be disappointed if my parents couldn't do anything other than name me after a TV character. Like I was named after my grandfather in England. And my middle name, James, is after my father. Like, that seems like, like you're sitting around and you're going to have a kid. What do you want to? What do you want to name her? I don't know. If it's a girl, hey, there's a Blair on TV. How about that?
Yeah, that's it.
Facts of life.
Yeah.
You got it first.
It was dueling Googling.
Yeah.
That was an Eagle song, actually. Dueling Googling.
Yeah.
Dueling Googling?
Great googly woogly.
The 1,000 most popular boy names. Number 1 is Noah. Holy moly, I wouldn't have guessed that. Times have changed. Noah,
yes.
Noah, Liam, Mason, Jacob, William, Ethan, James. Well, James is number 7. Alexander. Where's Peter? Peter's Logan. Of course, that would be after the Marvel Comics book hero. Logan, the guy that plays Wolverine. I'm sure that's where that comes in from.
Oof.
All right. Anyway, Gabriel, Sam.
Well, that ain't the case in Texas. I figured none of those names are in the top. Those names are in the top 10 in Texas.
Yeah, I still haven't stumbled across.
All right, what would the top 10 Texas names be?
Well, I think a few of the big names in Texas would be Tyler.
Yes.
And Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And Justin.
And Bubba.
Named after the food, I guess. And, yeah.
Bubba. Bubba, linebacker, plays linebacker for the Odessa Falcons or something.
Be the Permian Panthers, I think that would be.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So when last we left our hero, we had he seemed like an incredibly humble guy to me. Which is an odd thing to say to somebody.
I am. I'm incredibly humble.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble.
Well, exactly. Well, and it's like, I know a lot of people think I'm a strikingly good-looking man for my age, so I started just saying it because I know they were too embarrassed to say it for me.
It's those legs.
Yeah, exactly. It's not easy being a world-famous model railroader, let me tell you. It's probably more pressure than one man can stand. Okay, so while we were talking in the first part, I have a bunch of questions. But while we were talking in the first part, what exactly is the Railroad and Locomotive Historical Society? You won a photography award.
I won a Lifetime Achievement Award, which was kind of humbling to me, and
See?
I was very honored to have this.
I just said that. You're humble, and you said it too, see?
It was a little bit shocking because I'm not dead yet. in my lifetime. I hope I have another. I hope maybe it should have been a half lifetime achievement award, because I hope that doesn't mean that I'm at the end of my rope. But I was thinking that I was probably the youngest person at age, I don't know, 55 or something to receive this. But the fellow last year who received it, Travis DeWitt, he's in his early 30s.
Wow.
I think he's in, where's he in? Wausau, Wisconsin? He's in Wisconsin somewhere. But yeah, he's in his early 30s. So I don't know what that says about his lifetime. But
so this particular award, the Fred A. and Jane R. Stint, is that correct? Stint?
yeah, I see it over there. Yes, you're correct.
Stint. Okay. And what is
Stint?
Stint? Is that how it should be pronounced?
I think so.
All right. And what is that award for? What in particular group of people gave you that award?
Well, this was awarded through I received it at the Center for Railroad Photography and Art. They have a yearly conference in Lake Forest, Illinois. And the fellow who determined who received the award is John Gruber. You probably know of his name, photographer of a lot of renown, and he's done a lot of writing about rail photography. Right. And he was actually the founder of the Center for Railroad Photography and Art.
And where is it again?
They're located in Madison, Wisconsin, but they have a yearly shindig in Lake Forest, Illinois.
So how long has this been going on, this particular center?
I guess 15 years or more. I first went to it about 3 or 4 years ago. First one I went to, and it's if you're at all serious about rail photography or railroad art, that is definitely a show to go to. They have great presentations and a wonderful turnout. All the people you've seen their work and never met them, and it's just lots of chances to talk to people and network and trade rumors and gossip and discuss photography. It's a great opportunity.
Could we tell me what it's called again? And this is a great part of having a podcast. Is right now I'm asking you to tell me the name of it again, as if I want everybody out there to make sure they got the name. But
the center?
Yeah, but in actual fact, I'm asking you because I have the attention span of a gnat.
Okay.
So right now, so it seems like I'm asking for the universe, but really I'm asking for myself. So give me that name again. The Center for Railroad
Photography and Art.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And
CRPA.
There's probably a website for it or something.
Yes, there is.
Yep, crpa.org, I think, is the website.
Railphoto /art.org is what I've got on my.
There you go.
Can you send me a link to that, Mr. Kelly?
Oh man, you're really asking me to do the impossible. Yeah, I can get you.
Well, or you can get Mr. Wilson to do the link. He's good at doing links.
I know.
He's a good
on its way.
Attaboy.
Oh, you got it already?
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm just.
Yeah, but you
definitely dueling bruises.
But you've been working hard on getting the email thing right. So don't be beating yourself up too much.
But it's a great website.
It is. Yeah, I'm going to go look at it now. So, and how many people would attend this conference?
I think they sell out at about 200 to 300, I believe.
Really?
Wow.
Now it's been such a success that they have started having one on the East Coast, a smaller version of it. So it's they do 2 of these shows a year, 2 of these I won't call them conventions, but 2 of these weekends a year.
Let me ask you this question. Because you've been in, we haven't even covered the model railroad aspect of your life, but you've been, you're a renowned photographer of railways and railroads, and you work as a dispatcher and blah, blah, blah. It seems to me that this hobby, because of the digital age, is growing exponentially. Does it seem like that to you? Because now you can connect with people easier?
I don't know if the hobby is growing, but I think it's more accessible and more social than it's ever been. Is that a fair assumption? Yeah.
Yeah, more accessible and more social, which may, in fact, maybe it's not growing, but now everybody's connected.
Well, and I think also that it's more, and this is a big word anymore that we like to throw out in the society that we live in anymore. It's a lot more inclusive than it used to be.
Right.
Because it used to be kind of, it used to be just a guys club, right?
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of women involved. That there weren't so many women before, and it used to be mainly a white male thing. But I think we have a lot more people who aren't white in it.
Right.
So the whole hobby, I think, is opening up in that way. And I don't know if it's that way in the model railroad hobby, but certainly I see it in the rail photography realm. I mean, we have people now that are coming in who aren't really so much rail fans, but they like, and CPRA is really playing to this. Now, I won't say playing like it's a calculated thing, but I think CPRA is trying to expand the definition of what railroad photography is. So it's not just picture of train, Mongo like train picture. It's
right.
It's how the social aspect of railroad fits in, and that in society and in art, and the railroad as a sense of place in a greater society. I think that they've really done a lot to open up what an interpretation of a railroad photograph is.
Right, exactly. All right. So now I am going to, because you're such a, I think you seem to, you're not, Bruce's, can I have a yay or nay on this one? Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. Mr. Wilson, did you leave?
No.
He's on.
All right. Okay.
No, not even on mute for change.
All right. You just wonder where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
He doesn't. Mr. Kooistra doesn't seem very, very much like a kind of guy that blows his own horn. Does he to you? He seems like this is an unbounding amount of information and work that this fellow has produced, and yet I feel like I'm at this point now on this award here. It says he's photographed railroads extensively since high school. His work's been widely published, 15 articles in Trains magazine. He's recognized in the 50th anniversary in November 1990 of Trains magazine. He specialized in the Milwaukee Road. He's known for his coverage of the Milwaukee Road's Pacific Coast extension. He had the photo essay, Milwaukee Road Across the Seattle and Cascade Ranges, Trains, June 1979. B&N's Inland Empire, CTC board, June of 1994. His color work concentrates in Utah and Intermountain West Mountains of the late 80s and early 90s. He's the author of two others, Crossroads of the West, a photographic look at 50 years of railroading in Utah by Penn Trex. He remains active as a photographer, concentrating on short lines and heritage railroading. Overall, Kooistra's work is among the most significant railroad photography of the post-steam era, writes Scott Lothes, the president of the Center of Railroad Photography and Art. Did you hear that? Overall, Blair, did you know this, Blair, that overall your work is among the most significant railroad photography of the post-steam era? Are you even aware of such a thing?
Well, that's what they said. So, okay. Blush.
Yeah, blush. Yeah. Well, that's good.
So I got to throw something out here, Mr. Strang, and this is a person that we both have met. We haven't met Blair in person, but I'm getting the impression he'd be very much like John Armstrong.
Yeah. Yeah, very exactly. Or Lynn Westcott, another one of their, or
Jim Hediger,
Miles Hale,
down to earth kind of guy, and
Miles Hale.
Yeah.
I consider Miles Hale to be the modern day Lynn Westcott.
Yeah,
that's what I consider. So, all right. I'm sorry, Blair, but we have to go on. We have more questions to grill you on.
Oh yeah, lots of questions.
Lots of questions. So, your layout appeared, your model railroad appeared in Great Model Railroads in the early 2000s, and
yes.
you were modeling Australia.
Well, not at that time. See, I jump around a lot. I'm like that gnat that you talk about, short attention span. Right?
Okay.
At that time, I was modeling a proto-freelance version. Well, it started out as a completely freelance short line in southeastern Washington State. and it morphed into a proto-freelance of an actual railroad, in name only at least, the Walla Walla Valley Railroad.
Right.
So, which operated, it was originally an interurban railroad, which would operate between Walla Walla and Milton Freewater, Oregon. That's about 12 miles. And it was primarily an agricultural hauler, and hauled a lot of sugar beets, hauled a lot of refrigerated fruit, and in later years, it was a big hauler of canned goods. So this is what this bedroom-sized layout was based on, the Walla Walla Valley.
Okay, and how long did it last?
I had that in one form or the other in the house that it started out in, from about 1997 to 2004. And then we moved to the house that we're presently in, and of course it had a bigger layout area. So before all the stuff was even off the truck, I punched a hole in the wall to, hey, look at this. 6 more square feet I can use here, right?
Right.
And at that point, I had already had a track plan for a newer, bigger version of this railroad, which would be much truer to the prototype. And the railroad, if there was an issue of, there was a Trains magazine article that I did. For a while, when Mark Hemphill was the editor, they ran a semi-regular feature called Railroad Blueprint, which showed a railroad and showed a track plan, how the railroad was arranged and everything. And this was an outgrowth. This article that I did for Trains on the Walla Walla Valley was an outgrowth of the track plan that I did for this new, bigger space for the railroad. And if you were to look at this track plan, the prototype track plan, you'd look at this thing and you'd go, well, this isn't real. No railroad would do this. They'd have Y tracks that would, cross over a main, and then the Y would be split right in the middle of the main, and then it would turn into an industrial spur that would there'd be like four leads into a canning plant crossing over the main track at 90 degrees on the diamond and everything. And it was just an amazing track arrangement. And this was all running until the mid 1970s. So I modeled that, and I modeled that until from 2004 when we moved to the house here, the version of it then, till about 2010.
Okay.
Modeled that.
And then
it was, you used to have a really nice website detailing the layout and the prototype, which unfortunately seems to disappear, though at one point in time I think I went and downloaded everything because it's just so fascinating to read what you were doing.
Yeah, I did a lot of work on that website, and then I ended up not renewing my GoDaddy.com domain or whatever, and then it disappeared. But I have all the pages, and at some point I really want to just put it back up again, although the internet has just advanced and website design has advanced to the point that it's going to be one of these things that when I bring it back, it's going to look different. It's going to be a lot different, organized a lot differently, but it's going to have to be one of these things that when I have the time to do it, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of information on there. And one of the great things about this railroad is when I started researching the prototype is I ran into a fellow in Washington State who was living in Walla Walla at the time. He was going to college. He was getting his master's in history, I believe. And he found that the Walla Walla Valley, rather than throw away all their documents when they shut down or ship them off to the owner of the railroad, which was the Burlington Northern, donated them all to the local college in Walla Walla. So they had all their correspondence. They had all their reports that were sent to the ICC. They had all the car list, all the car movement records, waybills, everything.
Wow.
Blueprints, everything, all stashed away in this college. So
nice.
His name was Mark Ency. He's last time I heard, Mark was the editor of the Union Pacific Historical Society magazine. I don't know if he's still doing that. I think he is. But so Mark wrote his master's thesis on the Walla Walla Valley Railroad. But I'd go out and visit him, and we'd dig into the files, and just it'd be like heaven. And I probably have 500, 600, 700 digital photos of all these car movement records. So I was able to put it on a spreadsheet, and I could see how over the years and these records went from like 57 to 69. So You could plug all this stuff into the car movement records. You could plug it into a spreadsheet. You could see how the traffic varied, time of year, what the traffic base was. If you wanted to, you could figure out what the percentage of every freight car was for various railroads in the country that moved on that railroad. So, if you wanted to create a prototype-driven operations model railroad, this would be a great railroad to do it because they had all this information on these car records.
Wow. So, do you ever sleep?
Yes, I love. One of my new favorite hobbies is sleeping.
Now, there you go. I like sleeping occasionally.
Sleeping, it's great.
Yeah, it is great because you wake up refreshed and ready to go.
Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. So, what about the Australian layout? Where does it fit into all of this?
Well, then there's the Australian, the detour to do the Australian stuff. So, a friend that I worked with, Lance Lassen, he just retired from the railroad. He and his wife went to Australia in 2007, and he brought me back a model locomotive. And, this is kind of nice. It's like an Alco FA, but a mashup of an Alco FA and an Alco PA. But it's about 20% smaller than a U.S. locomotive, but it's still on standard gauge.
Right.
Real nice model. And I'm thinking, well, this is interesting. And I'd always kind of had an interest in Australian railroading, although I didn't do anything about it. But he got me this locomotive, and I started researching more in Australian railroading. I said, this is kind of wild. This is cool. I'm not completely burned out on the Walla Walla Valley thing, although at that point I'd pretty much done all the historical research that I think I needed to do, and I was looking for something else to do. And Australia, yeah, that's kind of wild. Everything, the trains are smaller because if I model it in a certain era, like up into the early 80s, up to 1978, 80 or so, the trains were small. They ran small trains. They ran the equipment was smaller. So right there, you got a size bonus, but you're still an HO. So you model Australian railroads. Your trains are shorter. The trains are smaller in a physical size, and it's just a different way of operating. So right there, that was kind of intriguing to me. So.
So, and when did this start? What year did this start?
I'd say 2000. Well, let's see. I made my first trip to Australia in 2009 and came back with a ton of stuff. But I had already been buying stuff mail order from Australia, and let me tell you that shipping gets expensive. But the exchange rate made up for the shipping costs. So I was already buying stuff in 2008 or so, and I think I made the decision 2009 or 2010 to go whole hog into this Australian railroad.
And so is that the layout you have presently?
I'm kind of between railroads right now, what I'm going to model. And I don't know what I'm going to model next because I had two different iterations of the Australian railroad, and I still have that is in place, but I haven't done anything on it in a while. I've got a fair amount of Australian equipment, and just as in the U.S., the equipment gets better and better and better. It's just amazing. This is really a golden age if your wallets are deep enough to have amazing models.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything is that's another
just phenomenal.
I know. That's another reason I think the hobby's growing beyond that we don't realize is because, I've become friends with a fella named Shane Wilson who runs Scale Trains, .com, and I mean he started that company just a couple 3 years ago, and he's doing okay, and the company's going to grow, and he's going to survive, and I mean he has like 15 employees already, and I mean I talked to a fella called Fred Hill from the Coach Yard, who's out of California, and he imports brass locomotives, brass trains, and he's doing well. I think the hobby is exploding, and we don't even know it. I really do. Yeah. I really do.
Oh, I think so. The quality of this stuff. And the Australian stuff, I got into it at a time where, I'd buy a few models. There were like two big manufacturers of trains, of model trains at the time in Australia. There was Powerline, and there was Train-O-Rama. Now, Powerline was kind of a development beyond of Lima and I think they were it had a connection to British manufacturing, I think. And Powerline was kind of somewhat scale, big, huge flanges and European style couplers and stuff. But Powerline, and then Trainorama came out with this 44 class. It's called the FA type cab unit, and it was phenomenal. And they brought out a fair amount of stuff and a fair amount of good models. But a lot of the rolling stock that you needed was flat kits, flat plastic kits, small manufacturers, local manufacturers. You source the trucks separately and the wheel sets differently. And if you got the Australian modeling magazines, well, it was like almost looking back into Model Railroader in the 50s. It was quaint. A lot of the stuff that was being done was quaint. It's like, how to take an aerosol paint can and 15 different things you could do with it.
That's it's something I don't think we've ever had a fella in all of this will be like we'll be up around number 90 as far as episode numbers when this goes out. And I don't believe we've ever had anybody who's lived in Texas with heavy involvement in Australian railroading. I'm
thinking that my friend Lance that I worked with and I were the only probably the only two U.S. modelers who were primarily modeling Australian prototypes.
And was Lance a dispatcher too?
Yep, Lance is a dispatcher too. He built a big room in his house that he built at the time to model the Southern Pacific Fillmore branch, and then he caught the Australian bug too. And it's like, okay, what part of an Australian railroad can I now extrapolate and put onto this existing layout? And he did it. He removed some sidings and changed some other tracks and used track diagrams. And there you go. It's he converted his Fillmore branch on the Southern Pacific into the New South Wales Government Railroad over the Ardglen Mountains, over the Liverpool mountain range.
That is so cool. So you gotta give me his name. We're gonna have to interview him amongst the other 18 million people we got to track down. What's his name? Lance
Lassen, like the mountain, but he's pretty shy. I don't know if Lance would be the type to talk on the air.
All right.
But
that's what they all say.
Yeah.
The funny thing about modeling Australia, though, is that it was real tough to get other modelers in the U.S. to really give a damn about it, or to really care about it, or to show any interest in it, because the idea was just so foreign to them.
Right.
It's like, now I wouldn't go as far as modeling British railroads, because, that stuff's just funny looking, But Australian railroads are kind of funny looking too, because they have, well, at least New South Wales Railroad had buffer plates, right? So they had buffers, and they used Lincoln pin couplers on at least the passenger equipment into the 80s. But it was familiar enough. It looked enough like a U.S. prototype that I could at least say, oh yeah, an Alco locomotive, streamlined GM locomotive, looks like an E unit, double-ended E unit, something weird with that, but yeah, okay, so.
And
I could get it.
Your blog is north of
Narrabri.
I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that's how it was pronounced. Does anybody believe me?
I believe
Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that.
No, but I don't know how to pronounce anything. I barely know how to pronounce my own name. Narrabri. Okay.
Narrabri.
And how did you decide on that particular area?
I wanted something that would be primarily a grain producing region that was not a heavy duty main line, but would still run, a fair number of trains, shorter trains, granted. Would have a local passenger train that would come in and out of there. Would also generate some local goods trains, as they would call them, goods trains as opposed to freight trains.
Right.
So, and that kind of led me to looking on the grand map of the Australian rail network. Well, New South Wales, cool. They running these Alco things as primary. New South Wales Government Railroad, primarily an Alco operated railroad. Great. So that's kind of how I got into that.
So you seem pretty good at scenery. Do you? I guess you just have a general artistic bent because of the quality of your photography. Do you do any other kind of creative things?
Creative things? Well, not really. I'd like to. I'd like to play the guitar. I have a guitar that gathers dust, but I keep telling myself, well, 57, maybe I can learn to play it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not going to really devote too much time to it till after I get some other projects done.
Yeah.
So I've got the guitar, which someday maybe I'll learn to play more than just a few chords on it. I got an old car in the garage, but I'm not a car guy. I just like the style of the car. I'm interested in mid-century architecture and furniture and design, and I have an aviation interest as well, aviation photography interest.
I was going to get to that. So what kind of car is that? It doesn't perhaps chance to be a white Thunderbird, is it?
Correct, a white 66 Thunderbird.
And how long you had that?
About 3 years.
That would make you a car guy. If you own
I can't stand around and talk about carburetors or what kind of transmission it has. I'll go look at it and I'll go, yeah, but check out the back seat, man. It's like a Las Vegas lounge.
Yeah, but you know what? I find creative people aren't technical people though.
That's true. That's true.
It's like they still enjoy it, but they enjoy a different part of it. It's like, I've never, like you said earlier, you don't know what the names of particular engines, modern engines are, locomotives are either, and I don't know them either. I got a question for you that I've asked two other real railroaders, and anybody that's been a dispatcher for 20 plus years, I would consider them to be real railroaders. Is it turnout or is it switch?
Turnout would be the actual component of the points would be the turnout, perhaps the frog, but we just call it the switch.
All right. And is it locomotive or engine?
And this also depends on what part of the railroad you're working on. If you're in former Burlington territory, it would be a motor.
Ah, just a motor.
Just a motor.
Wow.
Can I add, what's your lead motor? Now, engine or locomotive, pretty much interchangeable to me. I'll just say, what's your lead unit? They'll just use unit.
Right. Okay. All right. I try to stick with locomotive and turnout. That just seems to be more. Switch and engine just seems to be a little more. I don't know. I somehow I got stuck on locomotive and turnout. But then, of course, years ago, I'm talking right now, Blair. Just hang on a minute. Years ago, I switched from saying pop. Pop is what you say in the Northeast about, I'm going to Pepsi and Coke and all that. I'm going to have a pop. And then when I started going to the South much more, they say soda. So I say soda. I say soda. Yeah. So anyways.
Yeah. Well, if you hear most crews when they're talking on the radio, you will my experience, at least with crews that I work with, I never hear them say, hey, line the turnout back.
Yeah, okay. All right.
It's always line the switch.
All right.
We want to restore the switch. It's never restore the turnout. So I think turnout is a more model railroady thing.
Okay.
I was just going to wonder that. Is this one of these things that model railroaders have figured that turnout is the way it should be, and maybe to differentiate from an electrical switch or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then they get their knickers into not debating what it's really called.
There you go.
I think the turnout would just be a certain component of the whole diverging route thing, which is the switch.
Yeah.
Then you get the whole Australian thing where, everything's all different. So.
All right. And we need to go, before we breeze over it, we need to get back to that Thunderbird. So 3 years ago, you bought yourself a Thunderbird.
Yep.
And was it in pretty good shape when you got it?
Yeah, it was. I bought it from a place that sells lots of classic cars, but they were selling it for the daughter of the second owner. So, built in '66. The guy who ended up with it was a school teacher and basketball coach from Scottsbluff, Nebraska.
Right.
Reason I know that is because he had all his documentation. He saved all of it in the bag. I mean, there was everything. Fuel receipts. It was, new brakes, $27 at the Joe's Garage in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, whatever. So, and I found his obituary, and he died, and his daughter had it in the family for a number of years, and she finally decided that they'd get rid of it. So I'm third owner on it.
How many miles has it gone on?
I think about 142,000. The odometer shows 42,000, so I'm going to assume that it rolled once. Looking at the receipts on the work.
Right, and does it run pretty good?
Runs good, although I'm not being a mechanically minded guy. I'm often terrified to take it out.
But it's good for cruising around town.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's a beautiful car, and it always gets a lot. If you want to just hide and withdraw into the woodwork when you're out and about, that's not the vehicle to drive around.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be sitting there in the Target parking lot waiting for my wife to finish shopping for something, and the lady will come up and say, my dad had one of these when I was a kid. People are always just happy to come up and share their stories about their cars.
Oh, exactly. All right, moving on.
We have a problem here, Lionel.
We always have a problem, but what's this one?
In that Blair's not conforming to our typical interviewee. Like he started with the trains, stayed with the trains, kept with the trains, and then he got into cars.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we usually find that there's a place in there where girls and cars take over, and they kind of people get away from trains. Mm-hmm. In the late teens when they're going to university and what have you, and that doesn't seem to have been the case with you.
Well, I throttled back on the trains off and on. Like I said, I'll get really involved in something, and the train interest will fall off, and then I'll pick it back up again. It's like you have a lot of different hobbies. It's like you can't, it's like before you're married and you have a lot of girlfriends. You want to you spend more time at a time with one, and then you always have the backup or whatever. So I have all these backup hobbies that I'll come and go.
So you had a lot of girlfriends, did you? Here's a little tip for you. Blair. It's a little something. This isn't going to cost you any extra. This is a freebie. You might want to not let your wife listen to this.
I don't think anything would surprise her anymore.
I will.
She's the second wife, so there is a history.
Oh, Jesus! There you go.
Another one.
Yeah. Oh. And how long have you been married to this lovely lady?
Let's see. What are we going on? Boy, now there's a math thing that can get me in trouble, isn't it?
Now
you're in trouble now.
And it's an easy year to remember too. So 17 years.
There you go. And do you buy her flowers on Valentine's Day?
No.
Oh my. Well,
we're very practical, and she knows. She knows that I'm cynical about most things, and I'm quick to criticize certain holidays as being marketing created.
Right.
And and she's good with that. She's just happy. No, why get flowers? They're just going to die.
Exactly.
Take me out to dinner.
Sure. Absolutely. That's
practical.
Absolutely.
Take me to Fuzzy's Tacos.
That's what they all say. Trust me, buddy. Next Valentine's, you go to Costco, spend the $14, get her some flowers. You will be a hero.
And while you're there, get the $1.50 hot dog and all you drink.
Damn straight.
You know what? I'll send you the $14.
No ketchup. Ketchup.
I'll send no ketchup. I'll send you the $14, buddy. We had a couple of guys in Green Bay that really were floundering when I was interviewing them earlier in the year, and they had come up with the brainwave that they weren't going to get their wives flowers. Of course, the one fella, Mike Ostertag, he had told us that this was his first wife. Or his current wife. That's what he called her, his current wife.
Current wife.
And I said, is there something you need to tell her? She doesn't know. Mike Ostertag, great guy. It bubbles a little off center, but he's a great guy.
He's another one of these ones that we got a whole pile for the Real Railroaders Round Table.
The Real Railroaders Round Table. Yeah, it's fascinating how many railroaders are interested in the hobby.
You could do a Real Railroaders Roundtable, but I think it would devolve into a big bitch session within about 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a lot of that.
Fair enough. We're game.
Is that
real stories of the railroad?
No one says it has to hit the air.
Yeah, that's right.
the names and the voices have to be modified so that the railroads don't find out about it.
Exactly.
That's right. That's right.
I know a guy that was a firefighter for 31 years, and he complains about that. And I know a guy that's been a water engineer, geologist for years, and he complains about. Everybody complains about everything they do.
Somebody complains about something.
I know a guy that has a podcast that's been downloaded almost 250,000 times, and he complains about that. So there you go.
And a lot of other stuff.
Well, yeah.
Did I say that on my outside voice? I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's half the fun.
It is.
Bruce,
So I have a question.
Go.
What is the interest of aviation? You had a lot of pictures on Flickr.
Well, I guess I was always kind of interested in aviation. When I was a young sprout, my dad would, when we lived in Colorado, my dad would have to go down to his office. He worked out of the house, but the regional office he'd have to go down to in the business park near Stapleton Airport in Denver to pick up his samples to fill up the trunk of the car for his upcoming trips that he was going to make out on the road. So he'd take me along, and it was right underneath the flight path at Stapleton, where at the time United Airlines was training all their pilots, and they were using DC-6s, cool stuff like that. Of course, being 6 or 7 years old, it was just a plane to me. So, but I've always been interested in aviation. In junior high school, we had a music teacher who also had a aviation club, and he would take students up in Cessnas, and he had a little Link trainer where you sit in it and you try to fly around in this Link trainer that was full motion simulator. So I was always interested in that, and went to Australia and just started photographing jets as kind of an outgrowth of I wanted to get a photo of Qantas Airlines because I was going to be flying Qantas out of DFW, and it'd be nice to have a picture of the jet. So I went down there and photographed the 747. I said, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And as in the past couple of years, I've spent more and more time at the airport, and there's a whole genre of, or a whole hobby right there, just of plane spotters, of course. And there's a big overlap between these jet heads and rail fans. There's a lot of things in common, and a lot of them. I know a guy in Cleveland who's primarily an aircraft spotter, but he knew my pictures and knew my name from my train pictures, and we met up there. So it was just, and I think part of it, the photography here at DFW at our local big mega airport is such that I'm really not interested in photographing railroads, the big railroads in the U.S., and certainly nothing locally. So this is just a way to just get out, and it's kind of an Aspergering kind of thing.
When you take the pictures, you're using a telephoto lens, or are you really that close?
No, I use a telephoto, but there are some places where you can use shorter focal lengths.
Okay.
At this place where we photograph at DFW, about an equivalent 300 millimeter, 35 millimeter equivalent is good, but I have a big lens for photography as well.
And have you been approached by TSA close to the fence?
Oh yeah. Not so much TSA, but the local airport police. There's a place at DFW called Founders Plaza, which is a spotting place they set up, and the place is full all the time. There's always people, especially like Sunday afternoon after church and going to Luby's. People just come down to this place and watch airplanes. Families, it's a pretty universal interest, and especially people will come in so they can watch the big Airbus 380 come in, the Qantas flight that comes in the afternoon. There's always a crowd for that, but. Wow. There's other places that only gives you one perspective. It's like if you only could photograph trains from one location, you get pretty bored with it. So the true aviation photographers will look for other places around the airport where they can photograph, and some might be legit. You're never trespassing because there's always a fence, so you can't get beyond the fence. But the airport police would rather that all photography and all plane spotting be done just up in this one little place. But we we learn places to go, and you take your step ladder up and you stand up on your step ladder so you can shoot over the barbed wire and you get your shot. And there's this whole genre of the aviation photographer, and then there's numerous apps you can get on your phone that show you where all the planes are, and it's just amazing. So
that's pretty. And
cool. I've photographed at DFW, and I've made a few trips specifically to other airports for various aircraft that I wanted to photograph and places I wanted to go.
I'm looking at this one right now of One World. What the heck is One World?
It's like a marketing consortium. There's One World. There's Star Alliance. They sound like Star Wars evil empires or something. These things are called. But a number of airlines will all combine their ticketing, and so if you want to go around the world on one or across the world on one airline and start off, like if you're in Sioux City, Iowa, and you want to end up in Johannesburg, South Africa, you can just book through American Airlines or United, and they'll book you all the way through on their sister airlines, these airlines that they have ticket agreements with. That's what they are.
Okay, all right. And this is One World is one of those planes. Your photograph, like this one. This is copyright 2017. I'm assuming you took this picture not that long ago. It's on Flickr. I mean, incredibly sharp. Like, do you do much with the photo after you've taken it, or?
There's a few things. I'll import the photo, and one thing if you're familiar at all with Lightroom, and I don't know if you are or not, but there's the right side of the development module. They have all the different little tweaks you can do. So I know that one thing I want to do is I want to add a little bit of edge between the highlights and the shadows, and I can go into this thing called the clarity and just give it a couple notches. It gives it a little better definition, and I will pull up the shadows. So I'll pull the shadows back, and the highlights, I'll bring the highlights down sometimes. And usually you don't. Maybe I'll add a little saturation to the color. I'll go into various color channels, and maybe I'll add a little bit blue so the skies are more vivid. There's a few shots in there you might be looking on the Flickr of beautiful clouds behind probably the One World 747. You saw British Airways 747.
Yeah.
It's just make this stuff pop.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like darkroom work in black and white. But there are a lot of purists who always shot slides, like I had said in the first episode, that don't really consider this being kosher. I mean, there's a limit you can go with processing where it just starts looking weird and oversaturated and weird halos around things.
All right.
The thing is to bring the contrast up, bring a little bit more vivid color, and the sharpness should be there if you have good quality optics.
And what kind of camera are you using now then?
Well, I was always shooting these Canon SLRs, and here impetuous me again. I hadn't gone out and shot a lot of photos, and I thought, there's this new style of camera that's coming out called a mirrorless camera. It doesn't have the mirror that flaps up and down. They're smaller cameras, and the style Fuji brought was, all the manufacturers pretty much have these mirrorless cameras now. But a few years ago, I just dumped all my Canon SLRs and got Fuji mirrorless cameras, smaller in size, more like holding a film camera, the way they operate, and the quality of the sensor and the quality of the files are just beautiful. So I went to Fuji X series mirrorless cameras. Now I was also doing this aviation photography and doing more and more of it. I went to a few air shows. I'm not a big military aircraft photography guy, but I went to a few air shows, and the Fuji and the focus, the follow focus, and the focusing speed just wasn't up to it looking through the viewfinder, because you're not looking at them off a mirror.
Right.
So you're looking at a little video screen, essentially. So I decided that what I would do is I would for my aviation photography with the long lens, I would go back and I would get myself a Canon SLR. I didn't get a high end one. I got kind of a medium level consumer version, the D80, or not the D80. That's the 80D. There we go.
Right. Okay.
The 80D Canon, and then Sigma came out, has had this very good series of lenses, and Sigma, when I was a teenager, Sigma lenses were crap, but Sigma lenses now are just first rate, and I got myself their 150 to 600 millimeter zoom. It's a big throw with a crop body sensor. It's equivalent of like about an 850 millimeter lens.
Wow.
And that's a perfect lens for aviation photography.
Jeez.
So.
Yeah, your pictures are spectacular. It's just.
Oh,
I
thanks.
know. They are spectacular.
Especially the military ones with the afterburners.
The F4, yeah, they had a couple of the last of the F4 Phantoms, which were there were only a few left in the Air Force, anyways. They're taken out of the boneyard in Arizona, and they're remote control fitted, and then they send them up and they shoot missiles at them to test accuracy of these missile systems. So this is tax money at work, right? But they've about run out of all the F4s, so now they're using early F-16s, which, at my age, I remember F-16s were being brand new. But so the Air Force had one last squadron of F-4s, and they had a few of them that they kept, and they put them in Vietnam era paint, and they would fly them at air shows and stuff like that, kind of a nostalgia thing, and they just phased those out. But they came through Texas one last time here last year, and that was impressive. Afterburners full on. Oh.
Yeah, that is cool. What is Winter Rail?
Winter Rail. Okay, so we mentioned this Center for Railroad Photography and Art. They have their thing every year called Conversations, right?
Yeah.
So that's like some of us who go to it, we joke about it and we call it Tweed Fest because it's held at Lake Forest College, which is a small, very liberal arts college in the north suburbs of Chicago. Very very tweedy. Big money to go there, very serious. So, and the discussion we joke about it, call it Tweed Fest because it's like railroad photography is art. Okay, we're very serious about this, right? So, so we'd show up in our tweed jackets with leather patches. If we smoked pipes, we'd have pipes, right? So this would be like the one extreme of the railroad photography world, exhibition world. Now, at the bottom end of it is probably this thing called Beecher Fest. I haven't been to it. But these two brothers, the Beecher brothers, they work for the railroad. They're in Wisconsin. They rent out a meeting room at like a Holiday Inn near the airport in Milwaukee, and I think this happens in November. And basically the thing is you just look at people's pictures and tell jokes and hurl insults at the screen and fart and drink a hell of a lot of beer.
Wow.
So that's the bottom. And I want to go to Beecher Fest. That sounds like a hell of a good time. So, but then in the middle, there's a number of strictly rail fan picture exhibitions. And there's East Rail, which used to happen on the East Coast, which doesn't happen anymore. There's Summer Rail in Cincinnati. And on the West Coast, coming up on the 40th anniversary this year, is a thing called Winter Rail. Winter Rail. And it was founded in the late 70s by Dave Stanley. Well, yeah, I think Dave Stanley was the founder of one of the California photographers, one of the young Turks back then in the late 70s.
Right.
And he'd have this exhibition, and it started out at the Holiday Inn, I think, in Sacramento. And they would set up multiple projectors, and you'd run a program. You'd put your soundtrack. It'd be like a four track reel to reel, and you'd have your stereo sound on your two of your tracks, and then on one of the tracks would be a dissolve code, a track that would dissolve the projectors, fade in and fade out, and advance the slides, and people would put together these slideshows.
Wow.
So that's been going on since 1978. The 40th year is coming up this March. Dave Stanley turned it over to, among others, Vic Neves, who was one of the group who had coined the term foamer, a California term.
Yeah.
Oh, is it really a California term?
Foamer, yeah. Now, there's several different theories on how the term started out. One was that somebody on some steam excursion, a train crew member, mentioned on the radio, "Oh, these foamers are coming out of the woodwork." But there was also this group of young. I'm saying early 20s, and you know how early 20-year-old men are.
Yeah.
Testosterone addled, and this being the 70s in California, there was probably a little bit of marijuana use involved.
Yeah, right.
And the name of the group, when they called themselves the Foamites, and it stood for something, and I don't remember what it stood for, but they were a member of this group called BAFATS, which BAFATS, which I think stood for Bay Area Foaming and Toking Society.
Yep.
So these were all guys in their 20s, early 20s, and they'd take these epic trips and go camping in their pickup trucks and playing Sammy Hagar music in loud volume and chasing local girls to the horror of their parents, and they're just these epic 2 and 3 week trips for photography in the 70s. But
wow.
But Vic was one of these guys, and Vic ended up inheriting Winter Rail, and a couple years ago, Vic retired from a long career at the Postal Service in Oakland and moved up to Oregon.
To Corvallis.
To Corvallis, and took Winter Rail with them. And there was a big push among a lot of the traditionalists that we won't go to Winter Rail if it's in Oregon, because Winter Rail was this big draw. It was like, every year people from around the country would fly into California, and the weather would be nice, although usually it rained during Winter Rail week.
And it was in Stockton, California.
California.
Which was a bad town.
Yep, people would have tales of their cars getting broken into at the La Quinta out by the highway that they'd stay at, and Stockton's just a hellhole. Sorry, Stockton people. But, so the highlight would be you'd come from the dreary East Coast in winter, you'd fly into California, you'd pick up your rental car, you'd hit an In-N-Out Burger, got to do the In-N-Out Burger, right? Then you'd go out and do some rail photography in the sun, then you'd go to the Winter Rail show and see all your friends, and you do this once a year. So it was this huge social thing. It was like Burning Man without the fire.
Right.
Yeah.
So, man, I'm telling you, we could go on for days. Okay, here's another one. What's Beecher Rail? How do you spell it? Beecher Rail.
Beecher Fest. And
Fest.
It's kind of a private thing, invitation only. There's Bill Beecher, and I'm going to mess up what the other Beechers were. But anyway, there's a Beecher Fest. That's in Milwaukee, I believe.
Hey, Bruce, look that up, buddy. One of the Bruces, look that up. See is it like BEE or BEACHER?
BEECHER Fest. Beecher Fest.
All right, so we'll look that up. I see in one of your pictures on your Facebook page you're wearing a North Stars jersey. What's that all about?
Oh, yes. Well, that's probably the second North Stars jersey. The first North Stars jersey is a friend in Minneapolis who traded me a bunch of duplicate slides once for a game-worn Brad Maxwell jersey.
Oh, okay.
So I had that, and I don't know why I have it other than it was cool, and I had it for many, many, many years. And living in Utah, I never had a chance to wear it anywhere. So eventually I gave it to a woman that I worked with at the newspaper in Utah who was a Minneapolis native and was a big fan of the North Stars.
And now they're the Dallas Stars, and yet you're.
But see, now you have the picture of me in the North Star jersey now because I've gone to Stars games here, and I don't want to buy one of these horrible Victory Green jerseys that they have. So I'm a throwback guy. So I got myself a knockoff throwback North Stars jersey.
All right, but do you have an Atlanta or a Calgary Flames jersey?
No, I can't say that, but I will tell you that my 22nd birthday I spent watching Wayne Gretzky take apart the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, well, I think he took apart
so,
everybody.
There you go.
He took apart everybody at some point. Yeah.
I think he had 2 goals and 4 assists that night. So.
I'm not surprised, and that was only in the first period.
Yeah, that's right.
Who's Bernie Baker?
Australian friend. He's like a reality TV show star in Australia. Is
he really?
Hmm? Oh yeah, and Bernie's into everything. I mean, he's on this reality TV show called Railroad Australia. So And Bernie works for this. The railroads are set up a little bit differently there. The government owns the track, and they contract out to various operators for track time and slots to operate. But he works for, and this is interesting, he works for this company called Southern Short Haul Railroad, SSR. And one of the principals of SSR is also the owner of the largest model railroad manufacturing company in Australia, Aucision.
So I talked to a fella, what was Luke Towan, he's a pilot for the regional arm of Qantas, and he talked about Aucision.
Yeah.
And I always said that sounds like they came up with that name when they'd had a few beers. And they were going to call it, hey, why don't we call it Australian Precision? And the best they could come up with, hey, yeah, let's call it Aucision.
Well, one of the big freight carriers down there is Horizon, AURIZI, which is like Australian Horizon. It almost sounds like a phone company, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But so Bernie is this engineer. He's a driver, and he's a modeler, and he loves Bulldog locomotives, what we would call streamlined EMD or GM locomotives.
Right.
And he's a heck of a. Now that'd be a guy that you should talk to. You could Skype with him, I think. He'd be.
I can Skype with anybody.
Yeah, he'd be a great person.
So he's on the Discovery Channel in Australia.
Yeah, that's right.
And he is a TV star. You're right. I just see that now. Holy moly!
Hey man, I'm not feeding you any misinformation.
Wow, we gotta track him down. And so can we say your good friend Blair Kooistra sent us to you?
You call me a good mate, not a
good mate. Okay, a good mate.
Yeah,
you're a good mate. All right,
a good mate.
All right, and all right. The last subject we're going to cover is Shane Murphy.
Shane Murphy, okay.
Shane Murphy, the Cosmic Cowboy.
Yep.
And I started calling him the Cosmic Cowboy because he sounds like the kind of guy you just want to hang out with.
He is. He's the nicest guy, and no ego at all, not a bone of ego in his body, and he just enjoys everything because he enjoys it. There's no agenda behind it. And good-natured, takes ribbing, good-natured, hilarious guy. He's a native Texan, but he isn't a hat kind of Texan. He isn't a hat and pickup truck kind of Texan.
No.
No.
He's more of a Lexus kind of Texan.
Well, yeah, a BMW convertible kind of Texan. But he grew up in Dallas, so now his wife was from Tyler, so that's why he fled out there. But he did pretty good, and the only guy I know who you and it was great because Chris and I, Chris Atkins and I, we'd go to all these operating sessions everywhere. We'd do all this kind of stuff, but we'd go over to Shane's, and it was just the least pretentious operating session in the world. Just grab your train and go, and he'd have these freight cars that were like bought them at swap meets and made out of balsa wood, and chunks missing from them, old Varney cars that you probably have not seen in 40 years, but and then he'd have a flat car with a triceratops on it, and it's like, whoa.
So he's just having fun.
Just fun. I mean, if it's not completely prototypical, no big deal. I'm just having fun with it,
So how long have you and Chris Adams known each other then?
Atkins?
Atkins. Yeah, I call him Adams. I got an Adams and I got an Atkins. So now you see so I just referred to Chris Adams, our one of our perennial listeners, who's at this point he's driving either towards Old Saybrook or away from Old Saybrook. And the thing about Chris Adams, he's one of those athletic guys. He gets up every morning and he rides his bicycle, and he's up at the crack of dawn riding 100 miles before he goes to work. One of those annoying athletic guys that's thin and all that stuff.
Hey, I work in an office. Now that I'm one of the old guys in the office, everyone's now it's like in their 20s or 30s. And it's a big, bro fest going on down there. So And this is Texas for you. You walk around, and if you live in different, I don't know I don't know what people in their 20s up there in Ontario talk about all the time, but if you were to eavesdrop on a conversation about guys in Texas, in North Texas, probably working for the railroad, they talk about three things. They'll talk about trucks, or they'll talk about their some weight training program they're involved in, or they'll talk about guns.
Right.
So
It sounds like Oregon.
Yeah. Well, except in Portland, where they're talking about
Portland,
to hold your man bun up, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, and in fairness to lots of people, I've been on a weight training program for, going on 30, 40 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I put on a lot of weight, buddy. Let me tell you.
A lot of weight. Yeah.
I got a lot of money invested in this. I don't want it to go anywhere.
So I've known Chris Atkins probably since about 1997 or so. I've been remiss in keeping up with Chris. I haven't been up and seen his new layout, which shows you I haven't been up to his place since he moved into his new mansion up there. So,
right. He built that place and everything, and then he moved that. But that was on the land that Shane Murphy had with his Texas and Pacific section house.
That's right.
And how often were you? Did you ever go out to that layout before Chris bought the land?
Oh yeah, I was there when our Thursday night group went up there, and we're in this big empty freight house, and there's a big sheet of sheetrock lying, on top of a barrel or something, and we haul out a pencil and we start sketching out the railroad. We sketched out the railroad on a piece of sheetrock.
Really?
Yeah.
So what was that like? Like, was this Texas and Pacific freight house or section house was just basically sitting on the middle of 2 acres or 5 acres of land?
Yeah, just sitting out there. We sketched the thing out, and Shane, being a fast worker, had the thing built in about a week. Of course, he had to rip all the bench work out and rebuild it about 3 or 4 times. I
know that guy works at like a Mach speed or something.
Oh, he does. It's just amazing. It's like, there it is, but don't lean on it. It'll come out of the wall. So. Second time he'll get it right.
He's one of those annoying, efficient guys.
Yeah.
That's a bad, and there's efficient guys, there's athletic guys, and then there's just guys. Anyways, so do we have any more questions for this young fella, guys?
Yeah.
We haven't even...
I think, I've got one question for him. In all his experience with various and sundry railroad photographers, which one that he has met has probably inspired him most or mentored him most or something like that?
Wow. Well, there's been a lot, and you get into this photography fraternity, and a lot of guys' mentors become your friends. But I know when I was first coming up, it was like meeting Richard Steinheimer. Stein was just everything you've heard about Stein is being patient and always having good words. I mean, he could be critical about your work, but at the same time, he'd give you enough strokes and enough encouragement that you didn't feel like you were ever being talked down to. And he always gave you time. And, he'd give you prints. He'd send you prints if you were working on something. He says, yeah, just hold on to them. I'm done with these, Dick. You want me to send them back? Oh, no, they might inspire you or somebody else down the road sometime. So, amazing guy.
Your stuff is spectacular. Yeah, I've just been slowly going through your... How do people find your Flickr account? Now, what's the easiest way for people to find your Flickr account?
I don't have it memorized, but you can. What am I under? Blair Kooistra, one word. Is that my name up there on the URL?
Yeah. I think so. Is anybody? Yeah. I'm looking at it on my iPad. Is anybody looking at it on their computer? Anybody?
Give me a minute.
Anybody?
Back there.
Anybody? Hello? Anybody?
I'm working on it.
Anybody?
Bueller?
Yeah, Bueller. I'm looking at this one, Chehalis. Is that how you say it? Chehalis?
Chehalis.
I was not even close. 1978, Chehalis, Washington, October 1978. What a great shot. There's an
old pictures.
Yeah, there's an F unit and then a couple of pickup trucks. What an awesome picture. And do you just kind of keep, like, I know, like our friend Tim Warris, who owns Fast Tracks, he just snaps away. And are you the same way? Do you just keep taking, like when it was film, you had to be cognizant of how many shots you had left on the roll.
Oh, especially like Kodachrome, because that was expensive stuff to shoot. It's like back then it was like $6 a roll, and processing was another $6. And $1980, that's pretty good money.
Yeah.
So, but you learn to anticipate. It's like now I'm looking at that picture. They're tying up Chehalis, Washington, and I knew that the crew would have to come out when they parked that train. They'd be coming out and they'd be going into that depot. So, you have to figure out what you want to tell in the story. I mean, it's not just, it's not always just a million monkeys banging a million pictures and you're going to get a good one out of it. A lot of times it's like, okay, I'll wait for this picture and this picture will hopefully materialize.
Yeah.
Picture that I want will happen. I know that this will happen.
Yeah,
So,
the one you did of Sand Springs is unbelievable.
Now, see, that's my short line fetish. I really have no interest in going out in photographing the big Class 1 railroads. No interest in the UP, because I did the UP back in the good old days, and I'm just an old curmudgeon now. And it isn't. It's a lot more sterile than it used to be, and it's people don't want you on the property, and everyone's suspect, but. You can find, like I had the Sand Springs, and was there another group of there? Maybe there was. If you can look down and find some of the other stuff for the Tulsa-Sapulpa Union Railroad near one of the first of the groups that I put together in there. And that was just a case of calling them up and saying, hey, I'd really like to photograph your railroad. I work for a railroad, so I know safety rules, so don't have to worry about all that stuff. And they were amenable to me coming up and taking photographs. Wow. And I made a couple trips up there and rode the trains. And, it's like, for me, it's not so much the equipment anymore because the equipment's gotten a lot more sterile, but these smaller operations, the people are, they're not suspect. They're not necessarily wearing their day glow vests all the time. And it's a different kind of railroading than what most of the railroading is anymore.
The world has become sterile, and everybody's ruining everything with rules. I get that we want to be careful, but holy moly.
Sure.
It's like my son says, like they put nets at either end of the NHL arenas. And my son and I are huge hockey fans, and we're lucky to have access to season's tickets for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And so we have quite a few games we go to every year, and it's one of the things we've done together for the last 27 years. And I don't know, somewhere in Columbus, somebody got hit with a puck and
right.
was killed. And then the next thing, nets are going up in every arena in the place.
Yeah.
And it's like, like my son said, they've been playing hockey for 80 years and, maybe 2 people have been killed with pucks, and now we got to have nets everywhere and it's kind of like.
Yeah. It's that with baseball too. Line drives have killed people, and they're putting nets up and having to deal with that. But hockey itself, players get smashed in the face with pucks, or a guy gets his jugular cut by a errant blade, and
Yeah, that's just the nature of the game right out of the box, and it's just
sure.
It's just everything is becoming sterile. The rules and the institution are becoming more important than life itself.
There you go.
And I think that could apply to just about anything. All right, guys.
I think so.
I think we've kind of got to the end of this. I mean, I don't even think that we've even scratched the surface with Blair. I think he's holding out on us.
Yeah, he definitely is.
Yeah.
Oh my God! You just keep going through his pitches. So, what are you going to photo? What's next on your? What's the next thing you're going to photograph? What's the next? What's in the back of your mind saying, I got to get out and do X?
Well, one thing I've really wanted to do, and I haven't done it, but I really want to get up to Iowa and photograph that interurban freight railroad up there, Iowa Traction. Wanted to do that. I like interurban railroads, and I like short line railroads and switching operations. I prefer that in my modeling too. I'd much rather model a switching railroad than running round and round and having something to be dispatched. So I'd like to do that, but in the short term, I'm going up to Seattle. I'm going up to the Northwest early next month. They have a yearly picnic, a yearly luncheon for retired Milwaukee Road people.
Wow!
And because because I'm working on this book project with lots of interviews, I also want to do some interviews and do some portraits of retired railroaders.
That'd be
and
cool.
Good.
that one of the things in this book project that I'm working on is I'm tracking down the people that I photographed in the 70s today, and interviewing them about what happened to them in their lives after the Milwaukee shutdown, and tracking them down. And coming out of the blue, some of these people, they don't know who I am, or they don't remember me from 40 years ago, and here in their mailbox lands a picture of them that they had never seen. And we took this picture 40 years ago, and we get in touch with each other and go from there.
That must be it must be really rewarding.
It is.
And any idea when this book might come out?
Well, originally it was just mainly going to be photographs with a little bit of text and captions, but the more people I interview, I'm up to about a dozen now life stories that I've recorded, and there's about another dozen people I'd like to talk to. I'm in no huge hurry to get it published because I don't want to rush it and then make it kind of a project that could be better. So I would like to get it out one way or the other, publisher willing, or if that doesn't happen, self-publish it in time for the 40th anniversary of the Milwaukee shutdown, which would be March of 2020.
I wonder how a guy would get an autographed copy of that. Well, one thing we need to cover, Bruce, the Bruces. This will be the last thing that we cover. The main reason I started this podcast was
besides to hear yourself talk.
That is. I'd say that's
one reason.
That's the secondary reason. Probably the main reason I started this podcast, aside from creating unity around the world and bringing world peace to every corner of the world, and creating just a general overall love of mankind from everybody to just to imagine a world without any borders, and we're all just one people. We're all just loving each other. Aside from that, it's mostly to get free stuff. So keep that in mind when your book's done.
I'll give you a publisher. I'll give you the author's rate on it. How's that?
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
You supply the pen.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do that.
Yeah.
And
Blair, are you going to Winter Rail?
I am actually. Yes, I will be. The plan is for me to do a show on the Milwaukee Road, because I presented at the first Winter Rail in '78. So there's like this close the circle synergy thing going on with presenting at the 40th one, and it'll be on the Milwaukee Road. But first show I did was in '78. It was all color on the Milwaukee, and this will be all my black and whites and stories of the railroaders.
Yeah, one of our members is the Milwaukee Road Fulmer. I mean, he lives, sleeps, and runs trains. I mean, he's
a good man.
Yeah.
So you did your first presentation when you were 18 about the Milwaukee Road.
Yep. Now you asked about me being humble, and I was certainly not humble in those years. So I probably made a bit of an ass of myself with my precociousness. So I try to be aware of that and tone it down anymore.
Yeah.
But when I'm getting a photograph, though, I can be pretty straightforward about wanting to get a photograph, and I'm not always the best person to travel with when I want to do what I want to do.
Yeah, well, that's sometimes you have to go it alone. And how many cameras do you own right this minute?
Right this minute, what have I got? Two. I've got four. I've got the Canon 80D, and then I've got a Fuji X100S and two Fuji XE2s.
All right, perfect. All right, Bruce, the mail boy. Would you like to give out the email address?
Sure, I can do that. Our email address is modlerslife, modlers with one L, modlerslife@gmail.com.
Beautiful. What did you think, Kelly? What did you think?
I give it at least a 9.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. You just have a way, Bruce. I tell you, Mr. Wilson. You
Can I
just
say?
have, yeah, you're a natural.
It's the many years of practice.
Exactly. So when did we start this? And what, about 83? I think we started this.
Yeah, I think so. It was.
Something
I think it was March 29th.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
we officially went on the air at 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. Yep. 1 p.m. March 29th.
My birthday.
Really?
Good call.
Yeah, well, I knew that.
Yeah.
Did I say March 29th? Oh, no, I meant March.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Are you an Aries or are you the one before?
No, I guess I'm an Aries, whatever that means.
I mean, me too.
That means you're a bull.
You're a ram.
Ram.
You're a ram.
Oh, ram.
What Aries are ram? That's right.
Yeah,
Taurus.
ram.
Exactly.
Ram
tough. You're ram tough.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Arr.
We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/Modeler's Life. You can look for it in this, and you can. I like that one better because
look for it in the dairy aisle.
Yeah, exactly. It's in the dairy aisle. Look for it in the dairy aisle. And we have a website, amodelerslife.com. That's our website. And
links to all the podcasts on iTunes and LinkedIn.
Yeah, links to all the podcasts. And we have our Patreon site, patreon.com, /Modeler's Life. But we don't talk about that, Blair, because some people get mad. That's a paid site. So if you want more stuff, you got to pay a couple of bucks a month for that. So some people get annoyed that they have to. And then I think to myself, well, there's a lot of work that goes into this, so that's just the way it is.
There you are.
That's it. So, Blair, at the appropriate time, you're going to have to say, if you don't mind, you're going to have to say happy rails to you. Do you think you can handle that?
We'll give it a try. We'll give that a try.
Yeah, you did pretty good on the last time. What is this, the 14th part of the 47-part trilogy?
That's correct, yeah.
And I really, honestly, the flower thing on Valentine's Day, buddy, I'm telling you, you think you got the answer, but I'm telling you, go to Costco, spend the $14, buy her some flowers, and your life will change dramatically.
Kick it up a notch, too. We talked about him getting bring home a pair of Costco hot dogs and drinks for dinner. Oh, you're gold. You're gold now.
She's allergic to that. So food allergy, you know.
It was such a great idea, though.
Yeah, and if you ever if two guys from Green Bay, specifically Mike Ostertag and Luke Lemons, try to give you a woman advice, just go the other way. Run the other way.
Run fast.
Yeah. Nice guys, great guys. Love talking to them, love hanging out with them, but, a couple of bricks short of a load,
Green Bay.
Yeah, well, it's Green Bay.
Yeah, Green Bay.
You know what Green Bay is, don't you?
I'm going to find out. About to find out.
It's the home of Lambeau Field, the frozen tundra of Lambeau Tundra.
Hey, I live here near Dallas, so there's no love there.
There's no frozen tundra down there.
No.
Are you a Dallas Cowboys fan?
Are you kidding me? My favorite team in the NFL is who's ever playing the Cowboys.
Boy.
Wow.
You see, you're a bit all over the map there, buddy.
Don't even get me going on the NFL anyways, though. I'm just not an NFL fan. So.
Okay. Well, the best team in the NFL is the Jets. Unfortunately, I picked them in 1967 because my dad hated Joe Namath and the long hair, and that's where we went at that point.
I'm digging Namath.
Yeah, exactly.
Matt Snell, Emerson Boozer, come on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Blair, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
It's another Lincoln Homer.